It's gonna be about like just real quick.
Okay, so we're about ready to go live.
We are? Okay.
Jim.
Okay.
Jim.
Is this streaming?
Jim.
Let me know. You want me to just say hi? I'm Billy Bensing. I'm with
Yeah.
the Alliance for the Resilient Communities.
Yeah, and welcome to the broadcast, and then just play.
All right.
3 songs.
Let me know when.
Right there.
Just in here.
Let me know when you want to go.
How's that, Dick?
Okay, shall we? Hi, everybody. Welcome to the broadcast. I'm Billy Bensing. I'm going to be playing a few songs for you while we're doing all the other stuff. And this song is called "Listen to the Sunrise." It's about, I wrote about nature many, many years ago when I was very young. It goes like this. Got my whole band with me? Hit it.
Gotta be a man, take this land and make it home. The only trouble is it's like the sands of time in the stone. Listen to the sunrise, you feel the robin sing. Now take a lesson from the light that's free. Freedom is a word that's on high, on top of the throne. We don't need no man to take our hands and calm his own. No, no, no. Listen to the sunrise and feel the robin sing. Take a lesson from the light that's free. Your dreams, you know that truth behind the scenes. Realize yourself, 'cause you know it's your only weapon. Listen to the sunrise and feel the robin sing. Take a lesson from the light that's free. Nah, nah, nah. Take a lonely soul and let them know they can only grow. Tear the darkness down with a smile, release a frown. Listen to the sunrise and feel the robin sing. Take a lesson from the light that's free.
Voila! I've never done this before. Actually, I just met Michael a few weeks ago. But I'd seen that he was doing stuff, and I went, well, this guy's motivated, so I want to get involved in this. So we have the Alliance for the Resilient Communities, and I'm very excited about this because I want to see things improve in the world and our community also. So let me play a song. This is a little song from Cat Stevens. You know, he was kind of a really amazing, ahead of his time in a lot of ways. Which one is it? It's this one here. I really love Cat Stevens because he had something to say. So this is called "Where Do the Children Play?"
I think it's fine building jumbo planes, taking a ride on a cosmic train. Switch on summer with a slot machine. Get what you want when you want, 'cause you can have anything. Oh, we've come a long way. We're changing day to day. But tell me, why do the children play? Hey, 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 hey. Well, you roll on roads over fresh green grass, fire lorry loads, pumping petrol gas, and you make them long, long, and you make them tough. Just go on, and it seems you just can't get on. No. Oh, we've come a long way. We're changing day to day. But tell me, why do the children play? Hey, 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 hey. You crack the sky, scrapers fill the air. Will you keep on building higher till there's no more room up there? Will you make us laugh? Will you make us cry? Will you tell us when to live? Will you tell us when to die? Yeah, nah, nah, nah. I know we've come a long way, changing day to day. Tell me now, why do the children play? Hey, 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 hey. Ah, do 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 do. Da, da, da.
Great song, especially like "Will You Tell Us When to Live? Will You Tell Us When to Die?" And it's kind of like, you know, getting a little bit like on that edge here in this world with you know, some things that are going on. I think so. It's better to be aware. I think he was kind of tuning into stuff long ago. Anyway, have I still got time to play here? Cut? I don't know. What do you want me to do, folks?
One more?
I can play one more. I can play a song I wrote.
One more.
Get this the right harmonica here. Hold on, where is it? There it is. All right. I wrote this song. It's called "If I Believe." I wrote it with my friend Kelly Garmeyer, and I wrote this song together. She did most of the words, but it was my idea. But she's a wonderful lyricist. So it's called "If I Believe." It's kind of a spiritual song, but it's sort of saying, you know, you got to keep the faith, sort of like that. Hit it.
All of my life, dragged through my dreams like a knife, filing around my own grave. Times we just have to pretend. If I believe, I'm gonna find a better way. Through the wilds I'll see of another day. Hey. Ooh, yeah. Lover, love only takes me so far. A dream you could hear never stop. Here you go, it's sure do me good. You keep on saying it could. If I believe, I'm gonna find a better way. As I see, to be of another day. Took the world by surprise. Now drew out the truth from the lies. The mission was clear to the end. To love and forgive and transcend. If I believe, I'm gonna find a better way. Through the wilds I see of another day. Jesus, if I believe, will I be free? If I believe, will I be free? Will I be free? If I believe, will I be free? If I believe,
Hi, Michael.
Hey, Billy, how are you doing?
Great, man. Good to be
I want
here.
to thank another round of applause for Billy Bensing, please. So, a lot of change is happening in the world the last few months. And I'm glad that all of you are taking some of your precious time to be here, either live in the studio or to be tuning in. Right now we're broadcasting to KVMR Facebook page live, and thousands are being notified throughout the region and the world. And also on Golden Road TV, Facebook, and YouTube channel. So again, welcome to our December monthly Community Resilience Public Forum. I'm your host, Michael DiMartino, and I'm really happy and honored to be here in service of community, but even more so now with all of these various issues that are happening in regards to community resilience. Are any of you familiar with the term community resilience? Few people are. So I'm just going to take a brief moment because we have some amazing keynote speakers for you today. And more than just talking heads and people giving infomercials and information, these forums are really about connecting the dots throughout the Sacramento River watershed and about finding solutions to issues that affect us all. I think it's really easy to see, just looking at the campfire alone, that whether you're a person living in a multi-million-dollar mansion or you're someone living on the streets, a homeless person, you're a white-collar worker, you're a blue-collar worker, that these issues that we're talking about affect all of us. So community resilience is the idea that there's a certain level of flexibility and preparedness that we need to have as a community and as a region around certain issues of emergency preparedness, food, water security, health, and peace and justice. So we've been doing these forums now actually for almost 2 years, and every month we do one here from Nevada County TV and Digital Media Center, but we're also doing them from, last Sunday we were up in Siskiyou County at Mount Shasta, where we had about 50 people attend our public forum, because in Shasta their issues are a little different than us here. In Mount Shasta, what's happening right now is that the city of Weed and the public has lost its water rights to Crystal Geyser, okay? So there's a big awareness campaign going there about crystal water depleting the water table in the Siskiyou County area and depleting the water located within the Mount Shasta region, and it's having a profound effect not just on the area, but also we're going to see very quickly it's going to affect the water flow of the Sacramento to up to 20 to 25%. Now, the Sacramento River is our bloodline here in Northern California for agriculture, for all the various things we do. So, when we had that meeting, we brought people from the community to come and speak about these issues. So, emergency preparedness, food, water security, and health. Our forum last month, we focused primarily in Nevada County on food and water security. And we have a great speaker who's going to talk a little bit about that. But it came to our awareness through a front page article with the Union, with Michael Passner, that 400 and some odd miles of irrigation ditches are being sprayed annually with not only Roundup, which contains glyphosate, but also a large number of aquicides and heavy metals that, I'm sorry to say, is in our drinking water. It's getting into our water table. It's affecting our children and is having a really detrimental effect on our community. The thing I do want to say as part of these public forums is we're trying to bridge the gap between local government, nonprofit organizations, and individuals who care. So we're not anti-anything. We're not blue, we're not red, we're not conservatives, we're not liberals. It's the outcrying and the voice of our community that's dedicated to the health and well-being of our community. So I'm saying this because these issues we're not trying to make political. We're not trying to make them like, oh, well, that's them and this is us. We're here as really an outcry for looking at some of these systems that are no longer working efficiently and need to be reconsidered and actually providing solutions. I do want to comment before our first speaker. I'm currently working with David Howland, who's a water scientist. David and I have been going out and taking water samples from the community. We just did Bitney Springs. We're doing a couple wells in the area. We're also taking water samples from some of the streams and rivers in the area, which we're working in conjunction with the full spectrum water testing lab at the University of California in Berkeley. And we're going to have the results really quick because science speaks for itself. And we have a couple other people that are working on the climate change issue. Some of the things we're doing up in Mount Shasta around the water issues, and in Sacramento, every region has its own issues. I'll be talking about that more as the afternoon goes on, and we'll be here for the next 2 hours. And again, I want to thank everyone for showing up. We can't judge the success of these forums by how many people attend, because every time we do these, not only are we broadcasting through local media, internet, YouTube, Facebook, but we're doing stuff, and I want to compliment the Prospector for including a really nice article about our monthly resilience forum. So I want to acknowledge the Union and the Prospector. And I also want to acknowledge KVMR, who are now streaming to their Facebook page. And in the future, we're hoping to be broadcasting these live on KVMR radio one Sunday a month. Okay, so we're really trying to be like, without using any emergency tactics, but it's red alert on planet Earth. And when we hear from our climate change specialists in a little bit, we're going to really learn the science and some of the things that are happening. But even more importantly, what are solutions that we can implement? So on that, I want to introduce a gentleman. He works with an organization called Telestream. And actually, Telestream is really at the cutting edge of live broadcasting really throughout the country and the world. They've created a product called Wirecast, and it's because of him and his organization and the people he works with and the people here at NCTV, Dick Menser, Tara, Jim Heck, Michael Logue doing audio, and all the people who are helping to bring these pieces together that make this possible. But we couldn't do this without the support and involvement of this gentleman and his organization, Telestream. So a nice round of applause, please, for Tom Poon.
Well, thank you, Michael. That's very kind words. We've been live streaming community events for about the last 4 or 5 years. I've been working on the software and building it into a family of products so that we can do more things with smartphones, with cloud, with closed captioning, a lot of those kinds of additional things for broadcasting. We've worked with, we started out actually at Utah's Place about 4 years ago in live streaming, and it was in the kitchen of Utah's Place, and it was a great time, really fun, and we continued that through the last couple of years, doing a lot of community oriented broadcasts. We sponsor the technology that's in the county offices, which you watch the emergency preparedness forum this past week. That was all done by our technology. I was on the board of NCTV for 3 years and helped create what you see here, and working with organizations and people like Michael, it's been a lot of fun. I'll take a page out of Utah's booklet, book of sayings. Some people call me an expert, but you have to be careful of that term. You you take it apart. What is it? An X is a has-been, and a spurt is a drip under pressure. So don't call me the expert. Anyway, Michael, thank you very much. And we're here for the next couple of hours. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Okay, part of doing these forums, again, is not just having so-called experts. We've also brought on scientists, educators, and also speakers from the community. So excuse the untimely pun, but recently with the campfire, it's kind of put a real
it's kind of put a real torch under people's butts to become active and less comfortable, having less apathy to actually do something. And unfortunately, sometimes it takes our comfort being affected for us to really make change, especially here in the United States, where we enjoy some of the highest comfort and luxuries of anywhere in the world. So I want to introduce our next speaker, because part of doing these forums is about giving you, our audience, a voice. And as you can see, after each keynote speaker, if you have any questions, please come on up to the microphone. And this is our time to help educate each other and educate the public. So in doing these broadcasts, again, it's been a great honor, and I just want to take another second to explain how this all works. Again, I'm Michael DiMartino. I've been producing Golden Road TV and radio for the last 2.5 years throughout 7 counties in Northern California, committed to our focus on the Sacramento River watershed. So we broadcast in Siskiyou County, which is Mount Shasta, Shasta County, which is Redding, which had its own series of devastating wildfires. Last year, we were in Butte County in Chico doing a broadcast with representatives of the Mechoopda tribe and the Forest Service, talking about how the forests have been neglected and mismanaged, and the importance of the indigenous voice being heard as far as helping provide solutions to fire prevention. And of course, we all know what recently happened. So we're really trying to spread this awareness through all the different media to reach people. So we have Golden Road Productions, our production company, myself and Michael Logue, who's doing audio today. And about a year ago, we started really focusing on community resilience. At that point, I met a collaborator and co-founder of the Source Directory, Payom Riles, who just came in, and I want to acknowledge Payom. We'll get him up to speak. But the Source Directory is really exciting because we co-created this project. We now have about 1,000 people signed up, and it is an active network of 1,000 organizations
And individuals throughout this region that are doing resilience and community building efforts with an updated every week
blog of information and events. Okay, so if you're an organization, sign up. If you come in as a basic member, it's free. This is not just, you know, trying to make a profit or make money off of a misfortunate situation. It's a way to become a central point of communication for this region. And we're giving very high-level people access to put up blogs and information that can reach all of us. So I encourage you to check out the Source Directory. But on that note, I want to introduce our next guest. And come on up. And we share space in the building here. And actually, they're recently an awarded organization for some of the technology they develop. He might talk a little bit about that. But more importantly, he's a voice of a concerned citizen around what's happening in our community with emergency preparedness. And a nice round of applause from Traitware, please, Bert Spencer.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, I've come quite concerned about fires. Last year, when we had the Lobo fire and McCartney fire, I had evacuees that were staying at my house. And they had the issue of getting out of Lake Wildwood with all the traffic. But this year, on August 12th, the power went off at my house. In less than a minute, I had a call from a neighbor that was down below me saying there's a fire on the street. I walked out my front door, and there were flames in my next door neighbor's yard. This was the Oak Fire. It had started only 30 minutes before it got to my house, and that was quite a way. It had jumped Buck Mountain, it then jumped Oak, and with a southwest wind, the fire was blowing right at us. But we were fortunate in our county in that we've got a CAL FIRE station with planes that can come and drop retardant, and a very active fire departments that can get there. But even so, it was very frustrating because one of the things that had been planned in our area, I live in Buck Mountain Estates. In Buck Mountain Road, CAL FIRE has been planning for some time to cut a fire break of 150 feet on each side of the road. If that break had been cut most likely we would not had the fire jump Buck Mountain. Instead of having a 12-acre fire, we would have had a very small fire. But part of the reason that happens is CAL FIRE is somewhat restricted in what they can do, even though they've got all the money to do it. They've got to get every property owner in the area that they need to approve and let them come onto their property to get things done. There's also environmental requirements they have to deal with. And it's taken more than 2 years for them to actually get something done. Now, based on what we've seen with the Camp Fire and what happened up in Paradise, we've got to move faster in terms of fire prevention. We've got to allow CAL FIRE to move quicker. We've got to change some of the regulations. I used to have property up in San Bernardino and Big Bear, and every year I would get a notice from them if we had not cut our yard back. And if we hadn't cut it back, they would come in and actually clear it for you. And they'd send you a bill for that. In our county, we haven't been doing that. Right now, we had a town meeting just this last Wednesday, which was exciting to have happen. And there were a lot of things said. But one of the things I heard in that is that they're only going out and doing inspections when they get a report that there's a problem. That has to change. We can't continue to be complacent about fire prevention. If you go on the fire prevention page for Nevada County, you can get an impression of how far we are behind. They looked at the Lobo and McCartney fires, and they wrote out some of the concerns. Well, one of those concerns was, what are we going to do if we just lose 500 homes? We lost over 13,000 homes in Paradise. The county did not have a clue as to how severe the fire problem is. I think as citizens, we don't have a clue yet as to how serious it is. We have a climate change that's going on. We do have drier climate right now in the summers. We get into the fall, and most of our problems are in the fall in terms of fire. Most of these fires, about 50%, and I don't have the exact figures. I can just say that in my area, 50% have been caused by power lines. We had 2 fires that occurred over the last 4 years that were power line fires. One of them was a bird flying into the power line, and another one was a tree firing the power line. We had this last fire. We're not sure how the Oak Mountain fire got started, or the Oak fire got started. I shouldn't say Oak Mountain. One of my neighbors, where it started in his backyard, thinks it was somebody smoking in the backyard. It could have been weed cutting. But we've got to find out ways to prevent the fires, but we've got to create the breaks. We've got to come up with fire prevention that works. Now, what worked in my area? Why did we not have a disaster in August? We came close to one. Alta Sierra was greatly threatened. Fortunately, my neighbor that was on the corner of Buck Mountain and Mountain View Court had cleared his yard so it was less than probably an inch tall for a whole 2 acres. That worked. He was able to stay and fight the fire in his yard. The things that didn't work were the clearance that we had between on the south side of Oak and across Buck Mountain. The fire jumped it. The clearances weren't there. It then jumped across Oak into the property. It was at the corner of Oak and Mountain View. That was a property, did not have a house on it, had not been cleared at all. The fire got very intense in that. You could see white ash all over the place where that fire got into there and got very hot. The fire almost crowned at that point. Fortunately, by the point we were beginning to get the airplanes in that came in and did the fire drops. My neighbor next door had normally cleared their yard, but this year they had let the grass grow. They had a fallen oak tree. Grass was allowed to grow up into that oak tree. When the fire got into the oak tree, everything exploded. Fire jumped Mountain View Court, went into my neighbor's yard. He had 2 fires in that yard. We had spot fires that were within the neighborhood. When we actually got back into the area, spot fires actually occurred even after they allowed us back in. My neighbor down below was calling. She had a spot fire in her yard. She actually ended up with 2 spot fires. Another neighbor had another spot fire in his yard. Fortunately, all those yards had been cleared. My yard had been cut down. When I got back, the fire departments were still in my neighbor's yard. They gave me a big thumbs up for the condition of my yard. Now, one of the things I'd done, and I would encourage anyone that's listening to the show and the people that are here to do, is get a hold of your fire safety council people. They'll come out and do an inspection of your yard. They had been out to my yard. I had them out. We'd done almost everything they'd asked for. And Michael's telling me I got just a few minutes, 5 minutes to go here. So anyway, a couple things just to sum up with. One, we've got to free CAL FIRE up to move forward on getting these clearances done and other clearances done. We need to have the county actually do inspections without having to have people call in and say there's a problem and start serving notices. We've got to change the regulations in terms of how we actually charge people and do it. I've talked to Steve Monahan about the problems. Yeah, they were concerned about senior citizens being able to pay for clearance and getting that clearance done. But we've got to figure out a way to fund those clearances for those people, whether we put liens on taxes or on properties or something that has to happen. So there's lots that needs to be done. If you drive down 49, you drive down 174 to Colfax, you drive out Alta Sierra, Karen, all these roads that are major thoroughfares to get out of the area, and I'm sure there are ones up in Truckee too. We've got to get clearance on each side of those roads. That has to happen. Otherwise, we're going to be running into each other trying to get out. Another thing I would like to encourage people, if you know of a fire and you're trying to get back in your neighborhood and somebody's there directing traffic, listen to them. Don't try to get in. We had fires on both sides of Buck Mountain, and yet people were running me over trying to get in. If you can stay and fight the fires, it actually helps, but you've got to be in a position where you've got an exit to get out. There is some good news, though, in terms of some of the people from Paradise. I do have friends, have met them that have come down here, and they are finding places to live. I talked to a guy named Ron the other day. He lost his house. Both his sons lost their houses. One of the sons worked for a paint company. They were able to move his job to South Sacramento. He's been able to get a rental house, get his kids back in school. His other son was actually able to find a rental house in Chico. He's been able to get another house purchased. He's already in escrow on that. So things are happening for those people, but it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of effort. And we don't want to see this area burned up the way Paradise was. We've got to take more preventive steps. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Bert Spencer, a voice of a concerned citizen and also a pioneer of technology here with the Traitware. Come on in. So I do want to say Wednesday was the emergency preparedness meeting that the county held, and it was broadcast, and there was probably about, what, 500-600 people there?
Yeah, it was quite full. There was, I actually wasn't able to get in. I ended up listening to it on the radio. There were a couple things that did come out of that. One other thing I was going to talk about is Highway 49. Highway 49's got a lot of choke points on it. I live south of Grass Valley, and at 5 o'clock at night, we slow down to 40 miles an hour. There have been fires along 49. We've had a lot of safety issues with 49 in terms of accidents, but I don't think we've ever considered the fact till now that we've got to 4-lane that highway so we have an exit out of this area.
Again, thank you so much. After the Wednesday meeting, because I've been super focused for 2.5 years on this topic, I was invited to a closed meeting that the county held. And it was quite encouraging because it was called the closed meeting for stakeholders regarding fire preparedness and emergency preparedness for Nevada County. And I just want to acknowledge really quick, and again, this is up on the source directory. Everything we're doing today is on the source directory. It's for rebroadcast on cable TV in 7 counties. It's also on YouTube and Facebook. But it was amazing to sit there and see people from the Alliance for Resilient Communities, American Rivers, Bear Yuba Land Trust, the Bureau of Land Management, CAL FIRE, Cal Office of Emergency Service, California State Parks, Caltrans, City of Grass Valley, City of Nevada City, Donner Summit Public Utility, Grass Valley Fire Department, Higgins Fire District, Nevada County Community Development Agency, Nevada County Fire District, Nevada County Fire Safe Council, Nevada County Firewise Coalition, Nevada County Office of Emergency Services, Nevada County Public Works, Nevada County Resource Conservation District, the Nevada Irrigation District, the North San Juan Fire District, the Ophir Hill Fire District, the Peardale Chicago Fire District, the Penn Valley Fire District, PG&E, which did not send a representative, boo, Rough and Ready Fire District, the Sierra Business Council, the Sierra Nevada Conservancy, along with representatives from the South Yuba River Citizens League, Tahoe National Forest Service, the Sierra Fund, the Town of Truckee and the Town of Truckee Emergency Preparedness and Disaster Relief, the Paradise Fire Protection District, the Truckee Office of Emergency Service, the UC Cooperative Extension, Washington Fire District, the Workforce Development Office, and YubaNet, and the Yuba Watershed Institute. So I sat there. I am just a citizen. I'm just like you. But you know what? I have taken the opportunity and taken the incentive to be involved to help walk the talk and to make the changes that are needed. So I'm not funded by the Rockefellers and the 100 City Initiative, as people thought in Mount Shasta when they all came for the Water Council. Resilient cities is a very popular term right now. Recently, the Rockefellers gave $500 million, the 100 City Resilience Initiative, to deal with issues of community resilience. In some places, they're dealing with sea level rise. In some places, they're dealing with wildfire. In some places, they're dealing with drought and lack of clean water. So this is not a little countercultural demographic or niche subject that we're here talking about. This is something that's being brought to the attention of people around the world and is becoming a huge factor in our safety, in our health. So, on that, I'm going to introduce our next person, because there's a lot of reasons that we're having an increase in these wildfires. And after our next speaker, if you have any questions of these people, again, we're broadcasting, we're actually getting questions on Facebook from people who want answers and have some insights and possibly some solutions. So I'm going to call up our local representative, and I hope I say this right. And Don, if I don't say it exactly correct, but come on up. We want to welcome our next speaker. He's very active. I know that they're working on a Nevada City 2020 initiative and doing a lot of great work. And this is another member of our community. We have over 300 nonprofits in Nevada County. People here are concerned and are doing stuff. Now we just have to connect the dots, because food and water safety is connected to emergency preparedness. It's connected to climate change. It's connected to health. It's connected to the farm to fork movement. All of these things are very connected, and I'm very happy that we have such great speakers today. So I want to introduce Don from the Nevada County Climate Action Now. So a nice round of applause. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask at the end.
So my name is Don Ravines. I'm a member of the Nevada County Climate Action Now Coalition. We formed about 5 years ago as a Climate Change Coalition. Now we've changed our name in just in the last year, so in case anybody gets confused, that's what's happened. We have the mission is to unite people of diverse generations and backgrounds in Nevada County to work toward climate change, prevention and abatement. We have actually 3 areas that we've been working on. The first one is education. We have been holding forums for the last 5 years on a monthly basis on all kinds of issues relating to climate, in terms of how water is used, the oil trains, how fracking works in California, all kinds of various issues. In addition, we have a committee that we work with Full Circle Learning, and we run a summer camp for kids between 5th grade and first year of high school. And it's a week-long camp, overnight camp, and the kids come and they learn all about the impacts of climate change. So they go out to Scotts Flat Lake and they did some marking of the trails for NID. They go to farmers markets and learn how food is prepared. They made solar ovens, which they sent overseas to Africa to help the people in Africa. So they do all kinds of various projects in their 4 or 5 days, and we do that for about 5 years now. So it'll be about 12 kids that stay overnight for 5 nights to do that. The other thing we do is advocacy. We tend, I wouldn't call them demonstrations, but just outbreaks where we go and support when the climate change in Paris was going on. We supported that. So various kinds of advocacy. We write letters to editors, to representatives on climate issues. That's our second area. And the third area is working on countywide 100% renewable energy plans. I'm chair of the Renewables Committee for that portion of our work. We've about a year ago or so, we worked with Sierra Business Alliance and Sierra Nevada Alliance, and Sierra Business Council, and we got a resolution made to the Nevada City, which is to be 100% renewable electricity by 2030 for Nevada City, and 100% renewable energy by 2050 for Nevada City. That resolution passed, and it was based partly on the fact that the Nevada City already had an energy action plan. Sierra Business Council works with a couple of different companies to create energy action plans. They work, first of all, they get a grant from PG&E. Then they come in and they do a complete inventory of all the greenhouse gas emissions that are used by the city that they're doing the work for. That's considered the baseline. And they take a baseline like in 2005, which is the last time they had information. They then calculate by doing certain actions, they would reduce the energy. For example, in Nevada City, it was going to reduce energy by 28% by 2020, electricity. And so they have all kinds of goals and strategies in order to meet that work. They formed a working group as part of this plan, where the working group gets together on a regular basis and goes over what's going on in the community, what's going on in the state, and publicizing various new actions that can be done for electricity savings. So that's essentially what happens there. The main things that were saving the electricity use are home retrofitting plans, where you can go in and add insulation, change your lighting to LED lights, that kind of work. Second area is reducing the electricity use by installing solar panels to replace the electricity coming into your house. The PG&E provides most of the electricity use in Nevada City and in Nevada County, and they're under compliance with the state that they have to reach certain goals of providing renewable energy to communities. And at the moment, PG&E is on target to become 50% renewable energy by the year 2020. And then we have to be 60% by 2030. That's renewable energy, which does not include large hydropower or nuclear energy, which are not considered renewable for meeting the requirements. So the goal of the cities, therefore, with their energy action plans, is to meet the other 50% of the goal into using renewable energy. Nevada City got their plan done in 2015, and Grass Valley has just completed its energy action plan. There's a working group being formed. The first meeting is actually this month, and they have a goal of reducing their electricity use by 36% by the year 2035. So that's their energy action plan. Nevada County is using all these are with the Sierra Business Council, working with PG&E to produce these plans. Nevada County is finishing its plan, and they'll hopefully be done by the end of this month with their completely baseline inventory, and then complete the goals and strategies. So at that time, the major cities and Truckee is working on their own plan. There's actually nationwide, there's over 100 cities now in the United States that have pledged to be 100% renewable energy. So these three cities, South Lake Tahoe has already got a plan to do that. Truckee is also working on a plan for that. And so therefore all of Nevada County will be under some goals of reaching 100% renewable by 2030, 2035. So this is what the Climate Action Now Committee has been working on. We formed a committee since the working committee for Nevada City had actually finished its work preliminary. They get when you do one of these energy action plans, they provide an intern that works with the city or county for a year trying to getting the plan implemented. So what we did is we formed a renewables committee for Nevada City last year, and we've been meeting bi-weekly now for over a year. And we're looking at various things that Nevada City is doing, trying to help them with meeting their goals. So Grass Valley is forming an energy action group, and as I said, it'll be meeting on Tuesday night for the first time. And the goal is to make sure that the city can meet what it says it can do with its energy plans. Nevada County is interesting because they actually did a project finished last year where they put a solar farm, maybe some of you have seen it, along Highway 49 out toward the Willow. And that it's called a solar farm, was actually going to provide almost 90% of the energy for the county's, all the county's activities. That includes the Lake of the Pines, actually the wastewater treatment of Lake Wildwood is included, all the juvenile hall, all the Root Center, all those buildings are part of that being, the energy is being provided by the solar farm of Nevada County. Nevada City has an option. They're looking at, they have an old city airport just outside the heart of the Nevada City. It's about 108 acres, and they're looking at various options of what to do with this property. And one of the options is a solar farm there. If they put a solar farm there, it would be about a 3.8 megawatt solar farm, and that would provide up to 500 to 700 homes in Nevada City with solar energy, or equivalent of solar energy. So that is one of the goals. They have 1,600 households, so that goes a long way to meeting the goals of Nevada City and its plan. Since a lot of homes can't have solar energy, solar panels on them because they're treed or whatever it might be, this is a supplement to what some of the people can do with their homes. So anyway, the question, there's some other options besides a solar farm. There's an option called community choice aggregation. Around the state, there's about 20 or 30 different communities now that have formed these community choice aggregations. And what that is they actually end up by having that locality, like actually in Placer County, it's called Pioneer Energy. And they have formed one of these community choice aggregation. They are going to supply all the energy to the county, and PG&E will provide the lines, the distribution lines, and the transmission lines. But they'll be fed in through the energy purchased by Pioneer Energy in Placer County, and that will again. It will reduce their rates, but they'll be able to go to, they have to comply with the state requirements, renewable portfolio standards of 33% of their energy by renewables. So this is an option, for example, that we could use here. We could do here in Nevada County. We could either form our own community choice aggregation. We could join on to an existing community choice aggregation. But in any case, it allows us to meet the goals of what PG&E is not providing, since they're only providing half of their energy from renewable. This could provide the rest of it of renewable energy. And finally, I might just say that some of the goals of the climate action now, besides the renewable energy in homes and businesses, is to operate farms that rely on regenerative ag using resources sourced in Nevada County and provide affordable products for our community. We have a couple of farmers on our committee, and they're working in this regenerative ag. And then the other thing that's happening is the state is requiring that in 2020, all new homes built in the state have to be zero net energy, which means that you have to put enough solar panels to offset your energy uses in that home. So, and by 2030, all non-residential buildings have to be zero net energy. So these are two things that the county is going to have to comply with under the new, under 2020. They're doing a housing element right now, beginning the draft in Nevada County, and that is one of the items we're making sure that they get the information for. The other thing is removing combustible green material to safeguard community and use for biomass energy. I've been on a task force for about the last 7 years of creating a biomass plant in Nevada City, Grass Valley area, which will take all the piles that are being now burned in the forest, creating black carbon. Those piles will actually be chipped and brought into the biomass plant and produce electricity from it locally here. And this is only the excess materials that are slough off of. So I think that's about it.
Questions. If you have a question, come on up to the microphone, please.
With the state moving to solar as much as it is, what is being done to look at how to load balance in terms of supplying power for when solar is not available? Night, winter. Basically what happened in Hawaii, they quit allowing solar to go in because they didn't have a way to balance the energy. And I want to know what are we doing to look at in this county so we end up with balanced energy supply? Because we expect to have energy and electricity available when we need it at night. That's not when we have solar. And we expect to have it in the winter, and the solar goes way down. I've got a solar system on my house, and I look at what happens on the load that comes out of it. And how are we going to provide that power when the solar is not available?
Well, the solar farm that they considered for the Old City Airport, one of the considerations is to have battery storage there locally, too. Penn, Warren might want to make a comment on that.
Yeah, I'd like to address that question as a renewable energy professional. A lot of what we're doing right now on a large utility scale is solar plus storage. So it's exactly what Don was just referring to. In Q3 of 2018 in the United States, we put in over 136 megawatt hours of storage capacity on the grid. So that's the primary thing that's going to solve the load imbalance situations that you've got when you've got resources that are variable and you've got demand that's occurring when the resource may not necessarily be available. It used to be that we were putting in, peaker power plants, which are these small little 10 kW or 10 megawatt, power plants that are running off of natural gas to address peak power demand. Well, now what we're actually doing is we're implementing on a wholesale level really large energy storage solutions, and that's where the battery solution's really happening right now, is stabilizing the grid and making it possible to bring a hugely increased mix of renewables onto the grid so that you don't have to deal with variable resources.
I might also add that we're in Nevada County and also in Placer County. We have large hydropower installations, and there are some various techniques to run the power the water backwards up through the to provide storage of the energy overnight and bring it back down in the morning too. So NID is a large provider of energy in the county, and we hope to have them be part of any work that we're doing in terms of a community choice aggregation.
So again, we are taking questions live online through KVMR Facebook and also through multiple channels on YouTube that we're broadcasting. So one of the questions that came in, and I don't think we're going to necessarily address that right at this moment, if someone wants to speak about it later regarding climate change, but part of the meeting I attended with the stakeholders for emergency preparedness is all of those agencies I mentioned are trying to figure out how to deal with these issues. So it really comes down to our voice as a community to bring these things to the awareness of the administrators who are in their limited capacity doing the best they can with the budget they have and the demands they have. One thing that was very encouraging is that all of those organizations that were there, including representatives from CAL FIRE and fire departments, there's a huge potential to bring in hundreds of millions of dollars more into our community. But the problem is, like the agency said, it's a water hose of potential funding, but how do you drink off a water hose? And again, this is where the rubber hits the road, because they need people and organizations that have professionalism to help administrate projects and to be able to collaborate to tap into more funding for more successful campaigns around emergency preparedness and disaster relief. So I don't want to get on a tangent, but the question was, we clear our land. When is California going to clear its forests? And what difference will it make if all the forests are cleared or if they're full of fuel? And I will revert people back to Golden Road TV show a couple months ago, where we brought in representatives of the Maidu tribe talking about indigenous forest management techniques. It was very insightful. And for those who've listened to the emergency preparedness meeting that was broadcast last Wednesday, or again, if you go to the source, all of these blogs and information and weekly updates are available in one place. We're not trying to take away from everything that these organizations and agencies and people are doing. What we're trying to do is have one place that you can go to get information, because even to find the emergency preparedness and disaster and evacuation plans for Nevada County, I hired an internet technological specialist to look. It took him about a day and a half, but he actually found the evacuation plans for the county. And you know what? We posted them on the source. So if it takes someone with that level of technical knowledge that much time to find the information, or go to the Root Center, there's a pamphlet in the back. I'm not trying to diminish the efforts that they're doing, but a lot of these agencies are up against a lot. So it really comes down to all of us becoming an active part, like what Don is doing with the climate change organization, what Will Holland's doing with his movement about food security in our region. We only grow about, 10%? 2% of our food in Nevada County, which means if we're isolated, if there's an emergency or something, what's going to happen? And he'll be up to speak in just a minute. So I know it's a lot of information. It can be very heady. This information will be available online. We're going to have a little bit of music in a minute just to kind of lighten up and breathe before we have our last few speakers. But I do want to bring up David. David actually, come on up, please. He recently attended the climate change symposium conference in DC. I met him out at the farmers market. I mean, he's out there in the community trying to tell people and educate them about climate change, because it's another issue that affects our health and well-being that's been politicized. Well, climate change isn't happening and blah, 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 and this and that. But the reality is, whether we're assisting it or it's happening naturally as part of a greater natural cycle, what does it matter? It's having an effect on our health and the well-being and safety in our communities. And one of the last things I want to say about climate change, recently, very verbally, there was a subtle assault made towards California by our current administration, saying, you know what, we're going to open up federal lands in California for the timber industry, for fracking and oil exploration. And not only that, but I work with ARC, the Alliance for Resilient Communities, which we're going to talk about a little later, which is an umbrella trying to connect the dots in the region. It's just people and organizations that are doing it. People are doing this, who we went out and did a video shoot about the coal trains that are now coming into the East Bay Berkeley, Oakland, Vallejo, all along the ports of Benicia and Richmond, that there are coal trains exporting coal from the Midwest into California, dumping them in parking lots along the coast, waiting for shipping containers and barges to come to export the poison of the old dinosaur of the coal industry to third world countries, which are increasing in population rapidly, and they're expecting to basically, well, let's make America great again. Let's make some money off the coal industry, but we're not looking at the ramifications it has. So again, you can go to the source and look, because the people that are getting exposed to coal, to processed coal being dumped in parking lots with little orange pylons and caution tape around it, is blowing freely all throughout the region of the Bay Area, and a lot of people just don't know. So again, we're not trying to be against anyone. We're not anti-anything. We're pro-community, we're pro-health, and we all really have to step up and take responsibility to make the changes that we want to happen. So on that note, I'm going to introduce David Whitehead from the Climate Change...
Citizens Climate Lobby. Yeah.
Citizens Climate Lobby. So a nice round of applause for another educated and concerned citizen.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you very much. Yes, my name is David Whitehead, and I'm with the Citizens Climate Education and Citizens Climate Lobby. Let me just get organized a little bit here, because I have a lot of really good information for you. I'm a civil engineer, a registered civil engineer in the state of California. I've had a 30-year career in public service, and I got involved with Citizen Climate Education and Citizens Climate Lobby about 6 months ago when my brother came up here to visit, and he had just started a new chapter of the Citizens Climate Lobby in Fresno. And he had a lot of things to tell me about that, and I was very impressed with it. So I checked it out myself and found out that we had a kind of a starting up chapter here in Nevada County. Was kind of teaming up in some ways with the Climate Action Now organization that Don was just talking about. And so why was I interested in the Citizens Climate Lobby? Well, the first thing I heard about was, first of all, Citizens Climate Education is a C3, I think it is, nonprofit dedicated to educating citizenry. The idea there is to empower individuals in our community to be able to educate other individuals, other leaders, businesses, what they call grass tops or influencers in our community. So we can provide a tremendous amount of information through our website and through our members to other people. The other part of Citizens Climate Education and Citizens Climate Lobby is the C4 nonprofit, which is about lobbying. So Citizens Climate Education is about 85%, Citizens Climate Lobby is about 15%. The lobby part of our organization is all about building political will for a livable future. And we do that by enabling others to have breakthroughs with regard to climate change and climate action. We are a nonpartisan organization. We're all about relationship building. We have over 100,000 members nationwide and about another 7,000 or so international, something like 450 or so chapters throughout the world. So it is a growing organization. Just to give you an idea, I was looking at the annual report for the organization for 2017. They were talking about 95,000, and they had just experienced about a 6% increase in membership. Well, here it is the very next year, and we're up to about 107,000. So CCE is growing very, very quickly. I wanted to tell you about an experience that I had just a few weeks ago where I went to Washington, D.C. and participated in the CCE-CCL Congress Lobby Day. CCE-CCL does this every single year, twice a year, once in November and once in June. And we have lobbied up to 500 congressional offices in a single day. Depends on how many volunteers show up for the event, but it's very effective. We really reach out directly into the congressional offices. So during the lobby day training, that was on a Monday, and we actually go and do the lobbying on a Tuesday. The first thing we do is we have a training day, and just some of the things that we cover during that training day will give you an idea of how this organization sees itself and what our core values are. The first one was a seminar on communications for climate advocates, concentrating on motivational interviewing. It's kind of an interesting term. And what I took away from that seminar was that, first of all, the description that we humans, I mean, how many out there would say that they're rational beings? I think pretty much everybody would raise their hands and they would say, yes, I'm a rational being. Well, that is true. We want to be rational beings as much as we can, but the truth is that we really are irrational and ruled by our emotions. And what we're doing all the time as we go through our lives is we are listening to stories. Stories from our communities, stories we hear in the news, stories from our families, and we're listening to these stories, and then we're saying, yeah, that sounds right to me, or no, that sounds completely ridiculous. And that is how, as we go through our lives, we're forming our opinions, and we're getting in touch with our values. So that means that storytelling is a really good way to communicate with people, because that's a natural way for all of us to communicate.
So is fake news a myth?
Well, I don't know about that. I don't know if it's really a myth, but I do know that one of the best ways to communicate with other people is by telling stories, and even more so, stories that are personal. Because when you hear a story that somebody tells you about their own personal life, you know it's real. So that story has a profound effect on you. We're taught when we do lobbying, when we have communications with others, we're taught that we need to start off with a personal story. Tell something about yourself, because that helps you to describe to other people your values. And values, especially shared values, is how we reach agreement, and how we can then, once we have agreement, we can move forward and we can take action. So I found that very interesting. There was also a forum with journalists that they were talking about the legislative status of in Congress of things. We had Time Magazine and The Hill, and we had several others. They had a nice discussion in that forum. And then we had a presentation from one of CCE's staff. His name is Danny Richter. He's the tech guy. He is a very smart, very dynamic individual. He's a PhD. And he does the data crunching for CCL every single year. So when CCL goes into Congress and lobbies congressional staffs and members of Congress, there's a person there who takes notes. And the notes highlight all of the points that were mentioned during the conversation to find out what was most important. And volunteers use open-ended questions to draw out information. Of course, like I said, we're a nonpartisan organization. We're not interested in red or blue or who's right or wrong. What we're trying to do is to find out what are our shared values. And we do that by asking open-ended questions that ask the other people to give us their views and to give us their take on things. As all of those notes are all put together and then sent to Danny Richter for his data crunching, he puts out one of these. Okay, and what this does is it talks about the June 2018 congressional meetings. We had 507 congressional meetings. There's only 535 offices in Congress and Senate. But we had 507 during the June meeting. And here is a summary that shows what was most important to the people that we talked with. So the Climate Solutions Caucus by far came up as the most important topic in Congress. They also wanted to know about dividend. They wanted to know about agriculture, endorsers, local impacts, jobs. And then here's a heat chart. Now, this is a unique product that CCE puts out every year. It shows you in red where the hottest topics were. And it also breaks it out: Congress, House, Senate, Republicans, Democrats, committees of jurisdiction, and then it has the House committees here, and it tells you what issues down along this side were most important to those members of Congress. Now, this is given to every single member of Congress office in our government. Every year they have one of these, and they can take this. This is completely unique information. Nobody else does this except for CCE. They take this information and they can know what the rest of Congress is thinking about climate change. Now imagine how powerful that is as a member of Congress looks at this information and starts to pick off the way that the conversation has been moving in Congress over the years. Tremendously important information, completely unique to CCE, very, very, very powerful. So one of the things that Danny Richter said that really caught my ear was that, first of all, if you have legislation nowadays on climate, it really has to be sponsored by Republicans. Number two, what's the goal to pass legislation in the Congress? 60 votes. 60 votes in the Senate. That is the goal to reach in order to pass significant climate legislation. There's the Climate Solutions Caucus is a bipartisan caucus in the House, requiring that both a Republican and a Democrat join at the same time, so that the idea behind the CSC, the Climate Solutions Caucus, is to have a safe space for members of Congress to go and have a conversation about climate that is nonpartisan, that doesn't end up ending in a food fight. So that's important, because right now in our country and in our government, appreciation, things like appreciation and respect for one another, those are kind of countercultural. And so anything we can do to increase the respect and appreciation that members get from their constituents and return to their constituents is very important. And that is how we will create the conditions, the political conditions in our country that have succeeded in the past. Because we've solved a lot of problems in the past. And we've done it this way, by creating appreciation, respect, mutual benefit, shared values. There was also a report given on the IPCC Fourth Climate Assessment. And basically, I mean, I think everybody's heard this time is shorter than we think. He went through some economic costs about differences between 1.5 degrees centigrade and 2 degrees centigrade, and it was starkly more expensive to look at a scenario with 2 degrees centigrade than only 1.5 degrees centigrade. So as we went into our lobby day, we had really one main goal, and that's what we call our primary ask. We went in and we said, here's our primary ask. And we said, make climate a bridge issue, not a wedge issue. A very, very important message to give to members of Congress, to tell them that that is what we want out of our Congress. We want them to work together across the aisle in a bipartisan way, because, frankly, climate change and the future of the world is a nonpartisan issue. Go ahead.
Can we just get a little synopsis, and we only have like 2-3 minutes
Okay.
left or so, of what the climate change report actually said? I don't know if everyone's familiar with it.
Well, I'm not really an expert in what the IPCC climate change report says, but I will say that Citizens Climate Lobby, Citizens Climate Education, we really have one goal, and that is legislation that will place a price on carbon and will provide a dividend returned back to households all throughout the United States of America, including a border adjustment tax, so that products that are created outside of the United States will pay for the pollution that they cause by the production of their products. So placing a price on carbon is probably the most important foundational issue. It was identified in the IPCC report. Foundational issue in order to transform the economy of the world away from fossil fuels and towards renewable energy sources. The best way to do that is by placing a price on the pollution that is being caused by the production of these products. So during the lobby day, we went into congressional offices. I went to Congressman Doug LaMalfa's office. He's our representative, and we had about a 20-minute conversation with his staff about the things that they valued and about the things that the member of Congress valued, his priority issues, and how we might be able to mesh those interests with the values of the Citizens Climate Lobby and education. It turns out that the priority issue that resonated the most with Congressman LaMalfa was jobs. Hey, guess what? Renewable energy produces tons and tons of jobs. And our study about our proposal, carbon fee and dividend, says that our proposal would create about 2.1 million jobs in the United States over the first 10 years of its production. I just want to mention just a couple of other things that have happened just recently. There is actually a bill in the House now. It has just been introduced. It's called the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act, a courageous bill. It hits almost every single part of CCL and CCE's core proposed legislation. A carbon fee, a dividend return to households, a border adjustment tax. This is an article that talks about it. It's called HB 7173. Take a look at it. It will be reintroduced in the new session of Congress under another name, and it will be a good start. So it's sponsored by 3 Republicans and 3 Democrats. And just in my final words, it's also been picked up by our own editor of the Union. He just wrote a really great article in the December 6th edition called Climate Bill Rings a Bell. And Don Rogers has done a really great thing for our community by participating and voicing an opinion by a leader, a thought leader, an influencer in our community. This is a big win for CCL, CCE. So just in closing, I encourage everyone to check us out, CCL, CCE. We do have a local chapter. We meet once a month up at Briar Patch. We have a meeting coming up tomorrow night. And so everyone is welcome. We're at the Briar Patch Community Room from 7:30 to 8:30, and we're just going to keep things going and keep on working until we get the legislation that we need to have a livable future for our kids, for our grandkids, and for our communities.
Any questions?
No questions? Great. Thank you very much, everybody.
So I really appreciate everyone patient. I work a lot in schools and I work a lot with millennials. And in the age of digital technology, it's really difficult to get people to actually sit together for 2 hours in a room and actually focus. So traditionally people are all on their devices and this and that, or doing whatever you need to do in a busy world. But we appreciate your attention because we're not just doing this just for the information piece. We're doing this as a way to connect the dots. And one of the ways we're doing that is we're going to have our next speaker, Payom Riles, civil engineer and co-founder of the Source Directory. But before I hand the mic over, I just want to say I recently attended the Sacramento Regional Climate Change Collaborative meeting. And they were talking about in the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to make all of the mass transit, the trains and the buses electric, and we're going to do this and that. And then someone stood up who's a permaculturalist and said, why don't we just plant trees? Maybe we don't have 20 years. And everyone laughed. So part of what we're doing with the Alliance for Resilient Communities and the Source is we're actually providing information from many perspectives: the political perspective, the environmental perspective, the citizens' perspective. We're providing ideas, solutions, and projects because you know what, as both of us being certified permaculturalists, we actually realize, you know what, you can do carbon farming with trees. And one of the features that's so prolific in the Central Valley, besides petroleum-based agriculture, which has made it basically, I mean, if you've driven Route 5 lately, it's It's horrific. But we're looking at, the solutions within nature to help us deal with the problems that nature is providing, whether it's wildfires or collapse of our food systems or contamination of our water. So on that, I'm going to turn the microphone. He's been showing up every month for the last 6 or 7 months, and this guy is absolutely committed, and I applaud him for that. But I'd like to round of applause for Payom Riles, co-founder of the Source Directory.
Thanks, Michael, and thanks to the other speakers too. It's really important for this information to be accessible to people. So showing up to something like this helps to make that happen. Yeah. So Michael and we started the Source Directory shortly after he did the first event like this, where he invited people together to speak about sort of what are their ideas about what we need to do to make our communities resilient and to keep our communities strong and healthy. Over and over again, studying resilience and what resilience means really for a town or a city, it seems like it's always coming back to community, right? The people have to either be educated or involved in some way, or they have to be part of the solution. Otherwise, it doesn't seem like there's a way for it to work. And so part of what we're trying to do with the Source Directory is to connect the greater bioregion together so that many of us can see that there's this looming disaster that's upon us. And it can be terrifying and paralyzing, but in some ways the directory is our way to address that. We want to see the bioregion connected. We chose the Sacramento River watershed as a bioregion. Earlier we were talking about food. How much of our food can we get locally? So if we just take the Sacramento River bioregion, we could easily be feeding everybody in this bioregion with the resources that we have. It's not impossible at all. And so what do we need to do to get that? Well, first of all, we need to know what's being grown where. We need to know what's working and what's not working. And so that was our attempt. This is what we think is a step, is to just get a list of who's there and who's willing to participate. And so that's what we see the Source Directory as being, is that list essentially. It's a network. And so if you're interested in being part of that network, go there and sign up. Put your name in there. If you have suggestions, let us know. So that's most of what I have to say. The other thing that I would talk about is the importance of community in resilience is real, right? That's something I was mentioning. If we're going to do this, we're going to do it together. If we're going to get out of this mess, we're going to have to do it all together. But there's another piece that someone made aware to me very recently is in addressing these issues, we also have to start with ourselves. If we want to think about, well, what's the first step? What's an easy step I can take? Well, how about I can grow food in my garden? How much of my food am I producing myself? And of course, none of us are perfect. We can't expect that of ourselves. But in asking these kind of questions, it's important to consider, if there was a financial collapse next year, am I prepared for that? Do I have what I need to survive that kind of situation? If, the price of bread skyrockets, what do I have what I need to survive that situation? Those questions are important. Do I have my go bag ready? Do I have my escape routes planned? Do I have my yard prepared for wildfire? So all of those questions go along with the community piece. And once if you're working on your piece, then talk to your neighbors. Do your neighbors, are they ready? Are there people who need help? So I'll leave it there, but I want to thank you all for showing up, and please go to the Source Directory and check it out, and sign up. And if you have suggestions, let us know. We're open. Thanks.
So I also want to mention all of our keynote speakers at these forums are getting platinum memberships donated to them because we want you, regardless of whatever you're doing, to post blogs and post your events, because what we're trying to do is in the next few months really make this so that these 7 counties within the Sacramento River watershed can go there, they can find out the events, they can get the informational blogs, and they can actually click and directly connect with all of you based under the category that you're working with in community resilience. So it's really a one-stop shop. And even at the meeting I had with the stakeholders for fire preparedness in the county, they said, oh, we need to create a website where people can go. And I'm like, well, hello. So, you know, we're trying to provide some support. And again, we're not here against anyone. We're here for our community. And that's why I moved here from Santa Cruz 10 years ago. 1, because I love this area. 2, because all the concerned people and the forward thinkingness and all the nonprofits, plus the pristineness of this area of the Sierras, the foothills. 3, because Santa Cruz is dealing with its own problems of mercury contamination all throughout the San Lorenzo River because of several reasons, including the crematoriums. And also over the years, unfortunately, Fukushima is still an issue, and I watched the slow death of the Monterey Bay, the lack of the seals, the wildlife, and literally it was just breaking my heart. So one of my great influencers in my life has been Baba Ram Dass, and he said that it's really hard to make social change when we're just dealing with it purely on an intellectual level. The way for the greatest institution of social change to happen has to be right here in the human heart. So as much as we're giving all this information, we're trying to provide solutions, I'm here because I care. I see the children that are out there being affected by these things, the generations, like the indigenous people said, 7 generations down the road. What is happening? And it breaks my heart. So I'm here every Monday night holding a round table from 6:30 to 8 for the public to come sit at the table. We're here once a month doing these forums, and once a month we're in another county along the watershed. I would rather be relaxing, watching a Netflix movie, spending maybe more time with my family. But what sense does that make if the environment around me is being poisoned or being burned or crumbling around me? So that's why I'm here. And it's purely on the platform of my heart is breaking to see what's happening. And I really applaud all of you for showing up and the efforts that you're making. So we're going to just give you a quick second to stretch. We only have 2 more speakers that are going to be here. But I wanted to go back to Billy Bensing, who, when I first heard his music, it was one of those things that really moved me. We have just about 20 minutes left. So again, thank you for your patience. And we'll have our next speaker in a moment. But let's go back to Billy Bensing with some heart-touching and inspiring music.
Well, thank you. I think I'll do an old Neil Young song, since you all know that probably. If you remember the words. Well, I dreamed of soaring nights in armor, come and saying something about a queen. There were peasants singing and drummers drumming in the orchard, split the tree. There was a fanfare blowing to the sun, was floating on the breeze. Look at Mother Nature on the run in the 21st century. Look at Mother Nature on the run in the 21st century. I was lying in a burned out basement with a full moon in my eyes, was hoping for replacement when the sun burst through the sky. There was a band playing
like getting high. I was thinking about what a friend had said, and I was hoping it was a lie. Thinking about what a friend had said, and I was hoping it was a lie. But I dreamed I saw a silver spaceship in the yellow haze of the sun. There were children crying and colors flying all around the chosen one. All in a dream, the loading had begun. Flying by nature's silver sea to a new home in the sun. Flying by nature's silver sea to a new home.
Thank you, Michael, for putting this together. And
How many years ago was that written, and how many years is
still
Mother
brilliant,
Nature
isn't it?
still on the run? It's just
Mother Nature's on a run. Yep.
So we have about 22 minutes left, and I want to introduce our next speaker. He works with the Sustainable Energy Group. And again, this is really where the rubber hits the road. We're not just here for information, but to showcase and highlight the people who are bringing solutions to our community. From the Sustainable Energy Group, I want to introduce Penn. I can't see your name tag. Penn Martin. Nice round of applause.
Thanks, Michael. Hi, folks. I've been really touched here today listening to the music and amazing songs, and also listening to the other presenters. I'm finding how much I have in common with them, actually. You were up in Mount Shasta just, last week? I lived there for 12 years, 5 of it in a cabin off the grid, 4,700 feet up on the side of the mountain. And that experience is what got me started on this arc towards sustainability, because I found myself in heaven. I was literally surrounded by the most beautiful place I'd ever seen. And the thing that struck me more than anything about it was, how do I take care of this? How do I step up as a steward and take my responsibility for the little piece that I have in this, because I'm connected to all of it. There's threads running through that mountain, streams coming down off the mountain, the source of the Sacramento River up there. And I end up finding myself down here at the other end of the Sacramento, down toward the Delta, and connected by those threads to other people. And the lessons that I learned in Shasta were a lot about how vertical it is, how much you can actually connect with spirit in a place like that. But what I found down here was that there's a place where I can actually apply that and connect with the people together horizontally through the rivers of gold, the rivers of water that connect us, that are running through these foothills, where we can actually do things together. And so my career in renewable energy is a direct outgrowth of that, because we put boots on the roof. We implement practical solutions that help people act locally about these global issues that we're facing together. I'm going to tell a joke, and this goes back to what you were talking about in relation to Fukushima, because it also touched my heart really, really deeply, what's happening with the oceans right now. And the joke is, what do you call a hazardous waste spill at a solar power plant? Well, it's a sunny day, right? Because there's just all that juicy juice pouring out of the sky that's absolutely clean, that can light this place up. And it's not nuclear waste. You know, it's not tons of loss through the transmission lines getting that power from some central generating plant to your roof, when you can generate it on the roof of your business, on the roof of your home, in your backyard, very directly, very efficiently, right where you live or work. And it's just a beautifully elegant, economical solution. Because economy is really ecology. You know, when we look to the things that we want to model, I look to nature. Because if you want to talk about resiliency, you know, the planet's been around for billions of years, apparently, and it's been doing its thing, and we may be a little latecomer, little blip at the end of this thing, but if we have something to learn from anything, we can learn from the planet, and we can learn from nature and the systems that nature has put in place. And so when I consider resiliency, I look at, you know, are the systems that we are implementing as humans, are they sustainable? Are they organically sustainable in a way that requires minimal input of energy, in a way that, you know, like with sunlight, it's immediately available. It doesn't really take a lot to get it, right? And so not only does the system have to be organically sustainable, but can it be stable? Right? Does it actually have the ability to last as a stable platform for a long time? And so in relation to that with renewable energy, with solar, for example, you know, I take my smartphone. I know I'm going to have to throw that thing away 3 years from now because it's just planned obsolescence, right? The thing is going to outgrow itself in a very, very short lifetime. Whereas with the solar electric systems that we're putting in, 25 years, easily. You know, they're built to last. A solar panel is a smart rock. It's going to sit there with no moving parts and make power for 25 years minimum as a really stable platform. Systems, in order to be resilient, also have to be adaptive. So, yeah, you can be stable, right? But what good does that do you if you're just plodding along like a bull with blinders on and you're completely oblivious to the world around you and you have no ability to adapt? And I definitely don't get bored working in renewable energy. It's the most dynamic industry I've ever had the privilege to, you know, be experienced in my life, because it's always changing. It's always adapting. It's always responding to innovations in new technology, and it's responding to the demands and the needs that society is asking for in relation to what are we going to do with energy. I remember when I got into this back in '07, when I was living in Mount Shasta, solar was, the wholesale price of solar, just the panel itself, was more expensive than the fully installed retail price of a system on your home now. Completely installed retail is significantly less expensive than what I could buy a panel for by itself wholesale. And that's a function of the adaptation of the technology and the ingenuity of the engineers and the response of the economic marketplace to the demand that the world is creating for clean, inexpensive, efficient power. And we have the ability to do it. You know, we're not limited by the technology right now. It's not a technological paradigm shift that needs to happen. It's a social paradigm shift. It's our willingness as individuals to step up and to take responsibility to implement that, which we can do. And the solutions are right there. I was really heartened by David, as a member of the Citizens Climate Lobby, to hear what's happening on the policy level, to hear that bridges are being built between red and blue. Because it's not about who's right and who's wrong. It's just common sense. It's really just common sense. You know, I remember in 2001, I founded a renewable energy nonprofit called Shasta Energy Group up in Mount Shasta. And we were about education. We were very early on, you know, teaching people about these new things. And I remember people were talking about alternative energy. And that was this buzzword that we had to describe what it was that we were all about and what we were trying to encourage people to learn about and to do. And I was going, how can it be alternative when the prime mover of almost all the energy in the whole solar system is the sun? All we're doing is just cutting out the middleman, right? It's just a direct pipeline straight back to the source. So there's nothing alternative about it. It's just common sense. And it's our ability to directly enact those solutions practically today in our lives, because we really don't have any time to waste. You know, if you read the climate action reports, if you read the stuff that's coming from the IPCC, it's almost like it's too late. And I'm not the kind of person that wants to bury my head in the sand and just go, well, we can't do anything about it. Let's just throw our arms up and walk away, because that doesn't help anybody. But what we can do is we can work together to take action. We can build community structures that allow us to empower ourselves to make the choices that we want to make in relation to power. There's been a lot of talk lately about the grid, and everybody's like pointing at the campfire and pointing at the Tubbs fire last year in Santa Rosa, and it's really, really easy to villainize PG&E, you know, and the investor-owned utilities. But that, again, you know, is just creating a wall between me and somebody else that I'm seeing as other. And the reality is that, you know, decades and decades and decades ago, these people stepped up and built the grid. And they own the grid. And there might have been better ways that it could have been done. You know, maybe we could have put all the power lines underground if we'd been willing to spend the money to do that. You know, and as it is, you know, trees are blowing into them and sparks are flying and houses are burning down and people are dying. And yeah, it's tragic, right? But in my mind, the way out of that isn't to villainize the utility companies and go, you bad utility companies, you know, you killed people. Well, you know, they did what they could. And yes, it's a resource extraction, commodities-based, profit-driven paradigm that is shifting. You know, that's where we've come from. But to walk away from it and go, well, you know, I don't need a grid. I can flip the switch and I can be off-grid and I can sit here with my battery bank in my cabin and turn my back on the world. That works to a certain point. And from a practical level, if you want to spend, you know, 1.5 times to twice as much for your renewable energy system, yeah, you can put in a battery bank on an individual level. You can do anything if you want to throw enough money at it. But maybe a more inclusive solution would be to work with the utilities from a lobbying point of view, from a policy point of view, and try to steer them toward something maybe like SMUD, Sacramento Municipal Utility District, which is a fantastic model of what a utility can be, where it's actually responsive to the people and where it's interacting with the people on the level of service rather than profit-driven motives and corporate greed. You know, and I believe there's a way to get there. And I believe that it's not a one solution situation where the only way to do it is to stay grid tied. You know, there are going to be people that are going to want to flip that switch. There are going to be people that it costs $70,000 just to get a power pole to your house so that you can set a meter. And what's happening in those situations, and with people who the importance of comfort, the importance of security, the importance of having power and being able to be resilient when the grid is down, because it's going to happen. We can implement battery solutions, but the most effective battery solutions right now in relation to resilience are happening on the utility scale. Like what I was saying in relation to your question. You know, we're implementing gigantic battery banks right now on the utility scale that are stabilizing the grid. They're allowing us to provide what's called base load supply in relation to the variability of the distributed generation resources that we're putting on the grid, like solar and wind. Hydro is another solution, as Don had mentioned. Right now, one of the local entities, Nevada Irrigation District, has a bunch of hydro. And they have power purchase agreements that are coming up for expiration with PG&E. And they're looking for solutions as to what to do with that power. And it may be that they can create an off-taker with that power through a community-based organization such as Community Choice Aggregation here in Nevada County. And there are local working groups that are looking at how we might be able to implement that. So there's a possibility there where we can take the grid and we can make it regional. But it also comes back to people. I've seen community choice aggregation entities that are not that different, frankly, than the utility that they're replacing on the generation side. The renewable mix isn't that much better. You know, the prices may be marginally cheaper. It's still very, very profit driven. So if we're going to create those, my suggestion would be, well, how can we do that in a way that reflects our values? How can we get together and organize and do that in a way that actually is an outgrowth of our community values that are saying, well, we want to do it by utilizing renewables. We want to do it by making decisions from a community level together where we're actually chipping into this and we're stepping up and going, yeah, this is what our utility is going to look like. So we have a choice there, and we're actually on the cusp of a lot of dynamic changes, you know, in relation to the utilities, in relation to the grid, and in relation to the technology that's becoming available to us as our power mix goes. So there's a lot that we can do. I'm going to open up the floor to questions.
Yeah, I got a little bit of a question. This is sort of a bit out there, but I just think most of the technology you're talking about is basically already antiquated. And I think the future is really what people aren't thinking much about, and I don't know why they're not thinking about this, but it seems to be a very ridiculed subject, but it's the whole extraterrestrial question. There are already beings coming here. They already have power sources that are way beyond our understanding, and it has actually been developed and very superly suppressed by our own government in some instances. Like Tesla had it. J.P. Morgan shut them down because they want to sell oil. You know, this is what's polluted our planet. But nobody's talking about it, and I'm thinking about it. I've investigated this, and I'm pretty sure it's real. There is a real zero-point energy that actually could save our asses more than solar or anything else, but nobody's talking much about it. So I just want to bring that subject up and just say, why aren't we talking about it, and why aren't we demanding to have it? Because it is there, and people have been killed for trying to bring this out because they don't want, there's certain people that want to have their power, you know, the elite, the 3% that have all the money, they want to keep their power. They don't want us to have freedom and free energy. They want to keep controlling us. So when are we going to stand up and fight for this and become aware of this in a more grand, you know, universal level? That's my question for you.
Sure.
All right.
Well, those are some really big topics.
Yeah.
And I have some personal history in relation to this. As somebody with an engineering background from MIT, where I went for a couple of years, when I was living in Mount Shasta, I researched those topics very, very deeply. I was looking to people like Stan Myers, Puharich, and what I was really, really interested in is how do you take the energy in a car and generate energy in the car while you're driving it from water, because you can use electrolysis, blah, 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 blah. There's also harmonics, there's Tesla, there's quote-unquote free energy. And I looked really deeply into this myself. And what I found, again, it wasn't a technological paradigm shift, because the technology is there, right? It may be very, very esoteric technology that not a lot of people are going to understand, but it's harmonics and the technology is there. And what it actually was a social paradigm shift. And the lesson that I got really strong and clear, that was the best application that I could do for my energy, was to help people take the very next step solution and just go a little bit down the road towards solar, right? Toward something which, I mean, right now in California, we're only at about 6% renewable penetration as far as the ratepayers go in California. So there's, you know, maybe a third of the people that are left can't do solar because it doesn't make sense in their house or whatever, right? But there's still, you know, 60% of the people that can take something that's very, very easily implemented and understood compared to something that's very, very exotic. And so that was just my process. And I can't really answer your question from the standpoint of
the logical step that we can do right now.
Exactly. That was the point that I was getting to.
There's other alternatives that we should be thinking about.
And they're way out the road, and maybe we'll get there, but I think it's a social paradigm shift as much as anything.
I'd love to talk to you more about this.
Sure. David?
Just a real quick question. What would you say is the best way for our society to increase the research into new renewable energy technologies?
Funding. Yeah, it really comes down to funding. You know, we've been supporting the oil and gas industry, the nuclear industry, all kinds of other technology development through R&D funding for decades and decades and decades. Solar cells were invented in the United States at Bell Labs in the 1950s, and I keep, thinking, wow, there's not much more that we can do, and I keep getting amazed by how much further they can go. And it's just a question of funding. It's a question of taking policy and directing resources towards the R&D that needs to happen to further those. And the holy grail for us right now is actually storage. We're making small incremental steps in inverter technology, in solar cell technology, but it's really actually storage.
On the storage issue, what are the economics really versus pump storage, where you're doing water pump storage versus battery storage
I can't speak to that directly because I don't have hard numbers. What I do know is that there are many different solutions, such as some of them that you've mentioned. You can put in gigantic flywheels. You can pump water up to a higher elevation, and you've just made a battery because it's going to flow back downhill. There are huge advances that are being made right now through technology innovation and economy of scale in relation to lithium-ion, lithium ferrous phosphate battery storage technologies, and they're being implemented widespread right now on the utility scale. It's still not economically viable on the residential scale, like it is on the utility scale, to put storage in your home. It's about where we were 10 years ago with the PV technology itself. If I'm adding storage to an existing solar generating plant at my home, for example, it's going to cost me about what solar alone did 10 years ago. Yeah. So that's where we're trying to get to next, and it's just a matter of economy of scale. It's a matter of time. It's a matter of continued innovation, and that's the huge area of growth that we're experiencing right now in our industry. And I don't think we're quite there yet in terms of your ability to effectively and economically put it on your house, but it may not be far away.
Yeah, one of the things I've thought about looking into is whether I could do pump storage in my house. I've got enough elevation change.
Sure.
Whether it would actually work, but some of the systems I looked at is too expensive.
A holding tank?
Yeah, put a holding tank
up on a hill
up at the very top. Because in Nevada County, we got a lot of elevation change on a lot of properties, and there's potential. One of the things I've thought about is whether the Centennial Dam everybody's against, but you could actually have 3 lakes in sequence that you could do a tremendous pump storage system.
Yeah.
And I know in L.A., I used to live in Santa Clarita and Castaic Lake and Pyramid Lake. That's an all pump storage system.
Yeah,
so
water up a hill is a battery.
It makes a very nice battery.
And then you've got water when the grid goes down.
And it's one of the ways to go.
All right, thank you so much. Thanks, Michael.
This is just burning. Okay, so it's obvious that the big thing we need is a social paradigm shift, and not even a shift, like a jump, a rocket. What is the very first step that we really need to be focusing on a social?
Change your own consciousness.
Yeah.
Change your own consciousness.
Yeah, but where's this? Okay, change my own consciousness.
Right.
Change all of our consciousness.
Right.
So
And
what would you say is the biggest thing? Is there anything in place for that to happen?
Talk to your spiritual advisor. I don't know. I mean, honestly, please. Yeah,
I'll tell you what. This is a great question. I recently went to the Roundup rally at the state capitol. Statewide Roundup rally. Let's get Roundup out of our food and out of our water. You know how many people were there? 50. You know how many legislational representatives were there? None. 1. So this is where the rubber hits the road. This is where I'm considering myself in the trench, trying to touch hearts and change minds, because now we have the science behind us. And now we have connecting the dots. Why did the fires happen in the Camp Fire? Well, forest mismanagement, climate change. All of these things are interconnected. That's why this whole idea of community resilience is so important, because these are all interconnected topics. We have to educate people. Why is there not 50 to 100 people here in the room today? I don't know. It blows my mind. My suspicion is because we live in an age of distraction. There's so many things. There's so many organizations. There's so many different media channels. We can go to YouTube or Facebook. We can go to Netflix. There's a lot of distractions from priorities. And actually, some of the system may be designed that way to keep us distracted and not being able to synergize and to take on some of these issues. And again, we're not anti-anything, but we're pro-community, we're pro-health, and we have to make the changes. And Every Monday night, 6:30 to 8, we're sitting at a round table out there in the kitchen area talking about these things. Once a month, we're here doing these broadcasts. Right now, we have 5 newspapers that are wanting to do weekly resilience articles, including ones in Sacramento with a collaborative readership of over 400,000 people. Right now, we're broadcasting to KVMR. You know what? Call KVMR. This should be on the radio, audio live, too. Do we really need another beer show in Nevada County, or do we need something that has conscience? Now, I'm not saying or putting anyone or any concept down, but we have to apply the pressure to get the change that we all require. So it's education, it's outreach. I'll tell you what, right now, the Alliance for Resilient Communities is an advisory board of 20 professionals, scientists, PhDs who specialize in certain areas. We have a couple volunteers like Jeanette, who's been showed up today to help open the door and welcome people. And you know what? We have a few other volunteers, but that's it. And the reason what we're trying to do with ARC is build bridges. And I commend everyone for what they're doing. But when I went to the emergency preparedness meeting, you know what? I wasn't on the list. I said, oh, I noticed I'm not on the list here. You know, I fell through the cracks. But you know what? I'm happy falling through the cracks because you know what? I'm the putty to connect the pieces to make the whole grand design connect the dots and work. I've talked with several water organizations in the county who don't even talk to other water organizations. To me, this is like, what is going on? But I want to commend also Poyom Rouse is on the board of Sierra Streams Institute. They're out there testing the water. They're doing stream restoration. Bear Yuba Land Trust, Circle, there's organizations doing great things. But we want to use ARC as an umbrella to reach the media, to connect our messaging and be on a unified front. So instead of fighting this assault with a toothpick, everybody's got a toothpick, you know what? Let's lash them together. And that toothpick becomes a sword, becomes a lance, becomes a force for change. I'm not particularly one who is heavily invested in the political system, but I'm glad people are there. I'm here in the community. Billy Bensing went out this week as another volunteer, knocking on business doors, talking to people on the street, talking to local organizations. Where are those people today? Maybe they're watching, maybe not. So this is the beginning of a big wave of synergy and change, okay? So in conjunction with that, I want to thank Lotus Guide magazine, who gives us a quarterly article in the back of the magazine about community resilience in the region. I want to thank NCTV. I want to thank KVMR Radio. I want to thank KFOI in Redding. I want to thank KUBU in Sacramento. I want to thank KZFR in Chico. I want to thank KAHI and KNCO, who has me on talking. I mean, this is consuming my life. This is what I'm doing. I'm a producer. We have to reach people, and we have to help to look at things in a different way. The old paradigm is changing. It's collapsing. And you know what? Some people are really heavily invested and are going to hold on tooth and claw to not have those changes. So we just have a minute or two left, but I want to completely give bandwidth to our next and last speaker. Recently, I went to the farmer's market. I met David Whitehead. I also met a gentleman who works with Fog Dog Farm. Another person who's out there doing it, right? So we talked about, hey, community resilience. You know, in our community, we don't really have food security here, and there's a lot of issues. And then he said, oh, did you know Sierra Harvest actually is trying to couple people with land with people who want to farm? I was like, you know what? I've interviewed them. I went to the Food and Farm Conference. I didn't even know that. And I'm an investigative journalist. So there's a lot of things we're trying to bring to the surface. It's like, oh my God, so much information. Go to the source directory, please. It's a place, and I want all of the keynote speakers to connect with Poyom for a minute, because we're going to platinumize all of you so you can put up your events and you can put up informational blogs and videos. Go and see what's already there. Michael Logue just put up something about micro hydroelectric plants. Wherever there's moving water, you can create a battery and generate energy. The solutions are there. The science is there. The evidence, the campfire, the Butte fire, the Delta fire. I live up on Ubet Road. The Lowell Hill fire, that was created by a PG&E transformer. And I love what you said, because we're not anti-anything. We just have to reevaluate and look at the system. Someone who's doing that, and I went to his event up at the North San Juan Community Center, where they're taking a completely different approach about looking at food. Food food and water, the most primary essential elements of life, along with air. So I'll let him speak, but I really want to give a nice round of applause for another doer in our community, Will Holland.
Hi, everyone. I've really appreciated what I've gotten to hear tonight, and luckily a lot of the things I wanted to touch on got said since we're short for time, and I really appreciate Michael having me out. And that last question is kind of why I'm here on a personal level, and somebody mentioned horizontal organization, the idea of horizontally organizing as a community. My personal, what is coming for me as an intuition, as a starting place, at least from my history, is food. Most of us are probably lucky enough to have multiple times a day where we engage with food, we eat something, and starting to look at the fact that that food is a relationship. It's a relationship whether we're participating in it or not. I kind of jokingly shared with my partner and somebody else, and so I'll share it with you guys. It's kind of like waking up and realizing you've been married for your whole life and you've never showed up for the anniversary and you haven't been writing cards and you haven't been paying the mortgage. You're just not there. And there's this opportunity to become there and find out what that means for yourself. So I do think the suggestion to contact your spiritual advisor, whether or not it's another person or it's the food itself or it's the person that's planting the seeds and bringing you it, or maybe you'll find, like I have found, especially at the start of, so I'm a second generation market gardener. My dad started a market garden when I was 12 years old in 2000, and it was a formative period of my life. It was foundational, and it was a dramatic shift in the way I related to food as an individual, and our family did. I was so excited I backed away. I was saying that you may find that the relationship isn't there. You look at your food and you've just been suggested to trace it back, and there's nothing to trace it back to. It came from a cardboard box. It came from the grocery store. It came from hundreds of miles away. But we are super lucky to be here in Nevada County, where organizations like Sierra Harvest are working. We have the Nevada City Farmers Market. I was lucky enough to become on the board this year. It's very active. We have the Farm and Food Conference put on by Sierra Harvest now. And we have a lot of dedicated farmers, and many of them are asking these questions about place and about community, and they have been for a period of time, over a decade. There was Living Lands Agrarian Network before Sierra Harvest. And we all have a role. So my main pitch is that we all have a necessary role to play in the alternative food shed. So what has happened, in my opinion, over the course of hundreds of years is people being pushed out of their involvement in where their food comes from and how it's shared. And there's a lack of culture in that. There's a lack of personal intelligence and understanding. And there's a lack of that connection that I feel, if I don't have that connection, I can't inspire it in somebody else. And then, but the other side of that is, if I have that connection and I have a group of people that are empowered and have that connection, it doesn't take that many of them to make pretty tremendous change. And we are on a forefront of creating something. We're either going to create something that we've never seen before that is terrifying, or we're going to create something that we've never seen before that is really magical. You know, one of the things I'd like to say is that there is nothing like earning one's place in a garden and finally feeling that click that you're supposed to be there. I've been thinking a lot about nourishment and what nourishes me on an individual level and what I see actually nourishing other people. And I think it has everything to do with relationship. And I'd almost say that the science doesn't necessarily speak for itself, and it has very little to do with what's in the food. There's nothing like the personal test of validity when it comes to a lot of these big picture systemic issues. And I'm going to be very suspicious of top-down solutions, even if they have a really great narrative and they have really good science, just because of looking at that historical push of individuals out. And there have been all of these pieces coming together, all of these individuals, all of these organizations represent to me individuals in the community doing the work and being there, being present. And that is the solution. Thank you so much for letting me be a part of it.
I will say this: I went to his feast event, and it was amazing to see farmers, food foragers, and hunters who actually were preparing food for some of the top restaurants that supply these food from local farmers in the community. People like Three Forks, people like New Moon. So again, I commend you for his very humble and effective efforts. So I want to again thank, in the booth, you haven't seen him today, but I want to thank Dick Menser for helping with the switching of the live stream portion. I want to thank Tara from Nevada County TV. I want to thank Tom Preen from Telestream for this is the technology. This is, again, our community. It's amazing, right? All the people that are here. This place is a beacon of hope and light and change for the world. And if you Google it, Edgar Cayce, one of the world's foremost dreamers and psychics, actually called Nevada City in one of his dreams as the place where people will come to help rebuild the broken old and create a new paradigm. And that's one of the reasons I'm here. We can be a beacon for the world. I want to thank Jim Heck, who's here today helping to do camera. Jim has been my partner of doing this show for the last 2 years. We broadcast from the Nevada Theater. We broadcasted from the Grass Valley Center for the Arts. Wherever we go with our mobile TV cameras, Jim has been there. So I commend him. It's a busy life. He could be doing other things. He's retired. He's showing up to help make the change. So I want to compliment Jim Heck for being here today. I want to thank Payom Riles, who all of the keynotes, please connect with him. Make sure he has your information so we can give you platinum membership. Please use this. You're going to find it's pretty effective. And also, if you have a message, I can plug you into a lot of media throughout the Sacramento River watershed to get your messaging out to a larger audience. I want to thank Michael Logue from Golden Road Productions doing audio today. And I want to thank his daughter, Bridget, for being here, because I mean, why are we doing this? Is it for our own self-gratification? Is it to just make money? Is it to be popular? No. Right there. That's why I'm here. I'm doing it because I have to see the children every single day, and what kind of world are they going to inherit from us? Beyond that, I just want to say our next public forum, again, we meet every Monday here, 6:30 to 8. If you just want to come and say, hey, what can I do? I can volunteer to do something or nothing or whatever. Our next public forum is January 13th, and we're going to be focusing on other issues around community resilience. We're actually planning, in conjunction with Sierra College and others, a actual Earth Day event where it's more than face painting and balloons and selling hot dogs. We're actually going to do a 2-day Earth Day symposium. Part of it will be, looks like at Sierra College, accredited programs around community resilience that students and people can attend to get educated. And then Sunday we're going to have an event in the park with music and fun, but nonetheless having keynote speakers, which will also be live streamed to send our message of community is unity and action is change to the world. And then lastly, in September, we're organizing with the Guild and others at the state capitol a statewide call for water protectors to come so people can know what's happening in the Sacramento River watershed, between the pesticides, between the pharmaceuticals that we use that get into our water system, what's happening with the tapping of the water in Mount Shasta from Crystal Geyser. And again, all of these things that affect our quality of life and health. I want to thank Jeanette Piety for being here today. Just say no, but you're the volunteer who showed up. So I want to thank Jeanette for being here. She comes to our Monday meetings. And just to leave you with a thought, some of the projects that we're doing, really exciting. The Alliance for Resilient Communities in partnership with Golden Road Productions, okay? Because Alliance for Resilient Community, 20 advisors, okay? This is what we're doing with a very small team of people, of individuals and nonprofit organizations, okay? We have the Source Directory. We just launched Golden Road Magazine. It's an online magazine covering all these topics. So we're not printing it on paper. So check out Golden Road Magazine online. It's about everything from Bitcoin to permaculture to what type of water purification should you use in your house so you can have clean access to actual clean water. Besides that, I'm working with David Howland, who's creating stainless steel drinking straws, because one of the big issues with water security and the environment is plastic. So we're going to, as a way to raise funds, because this whole event, to be frank, is paid out of my own pocket to do this. So I am going to have a donation thing at the table when you leave. If you can leave a donation, it helps to do this work. Another project we're doing is we're actually looking at creating purchasable go bags. I went to the emergency preparedness meeting. I saw this amazing go bag. I'm like, where can I get one? And we're like, well, this is just a sample. So we're actually looking into putting together little bags that people can get that have all the essentials, or educate people about what do I need if I have to run from an emergency, things like flashlights and first aid creams and water filtration, simple little things that you can have in case you have to leave quickly. The last thing that we're doing, and this is really exciting because someone touched on it, Payom Riles, again, co-founder of the Source Directory, and I have been working probably the last year on putting together a proposal for the City Council, Board of Supervisors, about the airport property. Part of it is a solar farm, but you know what? Part of it is a biomass processing facility where we can keep the biomass in our own community, because we need a lot of reinforcement for our soil. Right now we're using a lot of petroleum products and other things. We can be reinforcing our soil. We have some of the top permaculturalists like Cathay Fish and others who want to be teaching permaculture on a larger scale. We're looking at doing an outdoor cultural arts center. Again, no infrastructures. We're looking at doing education around solar and wind technology and having a jewel. And again, we have 20 scientists and PhDs and professors on ARC board who are all behind the idea to create a community academy for community resilience. So you don't just look at a brochure, watch a video, or read a long, report, that you can actually go there and experience educational instruction on a basis. So that's really, for me, the crown jewel of why I'm doing this. I could sit here for years and do information. It's an endless effort to educate, but we're creating this roundtable to open up something that would have an economic development benefit in our community, a way that Sierra College, because enrollment's down with online enrollment now for other colleges, the potential of Sierra College might having to close down, offering accredited regional programs, just like they're doing at the Solar Institute in Hopland, just like they're doing at the River Farm Ranch in Reno, just like they're doing in the Community Project in Mount Shasta, or the Mill Project, or what they're doing in Plumas County with Kevin Danaher, who's the head of the Green Fest, the world's largest ecological zero waste festival, where 500,000 people come through the door every year in San Francisco, Los Angeles, Miami. I could go on forever. The point is, things are happening. Come to a Monday night community roundtable, 6:30 to 8. We're there every week. You don't have to come all the time. It's a busy life. Find out what we're doing. Keynote speakers, please let us know what you're doing on the Source Directory, because people in this county don't even know Crystal Geyser is in Mount Shasta tapping the water. So let's connect our region. Let's connect the organizations and the individuals that are making a difference. And on that, thank you so much for your time and attention. And I really appreciate everyone's support. And we'll be back here on January 13th. And in January, we're also going to be up in Truckee doing exactly what we're doing here. So every month, we'll be in this room doing these public forums and helping to reach out and educate the public. It's up to you to help spread the word. We can only do so much. So thank you once again, all of you, and for all the people who made this possible. God bless. Goddess bless, whatever you terminology, Great Spirit. Thank you for all your efforts in this endeavor. And I'm in Nevada County to be an agent of change. So it's time to connect the dots and make some things happen. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next month. So
So Payone is right there. If all my keynotes, you can just make sure Payone has your info so we can get you on the source upgrade.
For what was it? The Climate Change Action Coalition.
That was the old one.
So I think in there, that's